Welcome back to Maestas channel. My name is Anton Vieltsin. I'm an attorney in the Southern District of California here in San Diego. Today we're going to take a look at the case where the police are relying on the community caretaking exception to the warrant requirement under the Fourth Amendment when they help the defendant's girlfriend into their camper by opening the back of the truck. And the question is whether they violated the Fourth Amendment of the defendant in the process. And before we go on, I want to thank you for watching me on YouTube and subscribing, hitting that bell notification button. And if you're listening to the podcast version of this recording, please give my podcast a 5-star review rating. And if you like these t-shirts that say "Do not arrest this person," go get one on lawstash.com.
Quick message from Lawstash. Are you charged with a crime? Or do you want to know your rights if stopped by police? Watch California attorney Anton Vieltsin discuss legal cases from the Supreme Court, Ninth Circuit, and California state courts on the Lawstash YouTube page. Anton has handled hundreds of federal and state criminal cases, has an in-depth knowledge of the law, and has the best mustache ever. Subscribe to the Lawstash YouTube page. That's LAWSTACHE.
Today we're discussing United States versus Nugan. And the facts of the case are pretty straightforward. Police respond to a verbal altercation between Mr. Nugan and his girlfriend. When the police arrives, they try to separate the two, they get the stories, and eventually they try to help the girlfriend retrieve some of her personal belongings from the couple's camper. Now the camper is just simply a truck, and the bed of that truck was covered by a plastic cover. Instead of letting the girlfriend get the property herself, police officer goes to the truck and picks up the cover from the truck, and in the process he sees a large bucket with several rounds of ammunition. He asks Mr. Nugan whether that ammunition belongs to him, and he says yes. Then the officer does a records check and figures out that Mr. Nugan has previously been convicted of a felony, so he can be charged with being felon in possession of ammunition. He then asks whether it is okay to search the truck. Mr. Nugan says that he's not okay with the search, which is exactly what you should be doing. Do not consent to searches. So then the officer asks the girlfriend whether there are any firearms inside the truck. This time the girlfriend says yes, there's another firearm inside the truck. The officer goes back, looks at the truck, and in plain view he sees a barrel of a handgun sticking out from some under the bags. He then charges Mr. Nugan with being felon in possession under 922G. Mr. Nugan does a conditional plea where he's allowed to plead guilty but reserves his right to appeal after the district court denies his motion to suppress the evidence. He receives 60 months in prison, and he now appeals this conviction, saying that the district court should have suppressed the ammunition and the handgun as a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Remember, the Fourth Amendment protects you against unreasonable searches and seizures, and generally speaking, officers need to have a warrant in order to search your property. Now, under the Fourth Amendment, the government conducts a search anytime they infringe on your reasonable expectation of privacy. So in order to prove that there is a search that's in violation of the Fourth Amendment, the defendant has to show that he had a subjective expectation of privacy in the place to be searched, and that the society is ready to accept that expectation of privacy as a reasonable one. Searches conducted without a warrant are per se unreasonable under the Fourth Amendment, subject to only a few well-established exceptions. One of those exceptions is the community caretaking exception. Non-investigatory searches of automobiles pursuant to this function do not offend the Fourth Amendment principles so long as such activities are warranted in terms of a state law or sound police procedure, and are justified by concerns for safety of the general public. The government must also point to specific and articulate facts which reasonably warrant an intrusion into individuals' liberty, and must show that the government's interest outweighs the individual's interest in being free from arbitrary government interference. The court first reasons whether this is a Fourth Amendment search. And again, we have to look at the reasonable expectation of privacy. Mr. Nugent had a subjective expectation of privacy in the items he put in the back of the truck because, after all, he put that plastic cover or quote-unquote camper over the bed to make sure that people cannot see inside and the items remain hidden from both the public and from the police. And just like the closed trunk of a car, the society is ready to accept this expectation of privacy as a reasonable one. So, because there is a reasonable expectation of privacy, and the government or the police did in fact intrude into that space by opening the lid, this is a Fourth Amendment search. Now, moving on to the exceptions, namely the community caretaking exception, the court says that they simply cannot see and the government doesn't rely on any state law or police practice in opening campers in order to help the wife. Additionally, the wife could have opened the trunk or that lid herself. The government did not have to intrude into their space themselves. And finally, maybe there was a need by the police officer to separate a feuding couple, but that doesn't explain the need to open up the camper. And one last point. Under the community caretaking exception, we're worried about the safety of general public. Hence the word community. By helping the wife by opening up that camper, the court simply says that is not helping or worrying about the general public. The police officer was clearly worried only about the wife. And for that reason, the scope of the community caretaking exception was too overbroad, and thus the government could not rely on it. If you enjoyed this video, click like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so next time I post, you'll be first to know. If you're listening to the podcast version of this recording, please give my podcast a 5-star review rating. And finally, if you like this t-shirt that says "Do not arrest this person," go on my website at lostdash.com/merch. Thanks a lot for watching.